the piece of advice that I give to students very often is make people tell you no. If you don't put your name in the hat, you're automatically getting a no. But if you put your name there, you never know where that's going to lead. And so even if you're like, I'm not quite sure if I qualify, put your name in the hat. Make them decide if you are qualified for the role.
Howdy, this is On Air with Student Affairs. I'm your host, Elizabeth Drake, and today we're here with Amarette from the Career Center to talk a little bit about summer internships. So I'd love to get started by hearing a little bit about you and the role you play in the Career Center.
Yeah, so I've been at the Career Center now since 2019, so going on 7 years. I've been in a variety of roles. I've worked with engineering students. I've worked with career exploration students. But now I'm working with Mays Business School students, and I oversee the team over at Mays, serving our students over there.
So in your professional opinion, talking about internships, is this something that students need to have on their resume to be competitive when it comes to looking for jobs?
Absolutely. All of the research points to internships increase your chances of getting a full-time offer. And employers on that end are also looking for that. So when employers are looking to hire new grads, they're looking for students to have experience, which includes internships, right? So internships are kind of one of those things underneath experience that they're looking for. And they're also looking for you to have skills within that area, right, of whatever you're applying for, whatever industry, job, whatever. And it's not necessarily skills specific to that job. They're looking for those transferable skills. So things like customer service, communication, teamwork, things like that. And so internships are a great way to get started in finding those things.
Absolutely. So obviously, a lot of students might feel some pressure going into looking for internships. They might be intimidated. Why do you think there's so much anxiety surrounding finding the perfect summer internship?
I think students overthink it a tiny bit. I think they think it has to be a perfect internship, and it doesn't need to be a perfect internship. It just needs to get you the experience. I've worked with so many students that have done internships and they're like, oh my God, I hate this. Why did I think I could do this for a full-time career? Which is a really great thing to do for an internship, right? Because it's not a full-time job. You do it for 8 weeks during the summer, and then you learn, okay, I do not like this industry, or I don't like this particular role. So what do I do next, right? You take that time to evaluate, okay, here's what I can do moving forward. And so being okay with, sometimes it doesn't end the way you want it to, and that's okay. There's been many experiences in my own life, and I've worked with lots of students who have been that. And so just being patient and realizing you still learn something from that experience, right? And you still walk away with skills that you can transfer to other roles.
Absolutely. So it's not just something to be adding to your resume. It's generally a learning experience before you enter the workforce.
Exactly. It's a way to build network too, because you never know the people that you meet on your internship, how they might impact your career in the future too. So it's not just the job, it's also everything else that comes with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the importance for our listeners about networking in your internships and why that's important as well.
Yeah. So networking is important throughout your entire career. It's not just important when you're job searching. And I think that's something that a lot of students hear about the Aggie network and say, okay, well, my Aggie ring is going to get me a job. And yes, but you have to do a little bit of work for that. And so building those relationships. And so I think sometimes students feel like networking is like this big beast that they have to do. It's simply having conversations with people and asking for advice. And while you're a student, you have two valuable cards in your pocket, right? You have that student card because people love helping students. Whenever you graduate, that card disappears and people no longer want to talk to you. But when you're a student, they're like, oh, you're this moldable mind. We can share our infinite wisdom and advice with you. You're going to be great to talk to. But it goes away when you graduate. And then, of course, you have the Aggie card, and Aggies love helping Aggie. So take advantage of those two pieces while you're a student, and just ask for advice. And you don't even need to have insightful stuff. You can just say, I see that you're in a role that I really want to do. Do you have 20 minutes to chat with me about your career and how you got there? And most people will probably say yes. And then you never know where that conversation could lead. They may not have an internship for you, but they may know someone who has an internship or who has a project or has something else that they can help you build your skills in and connect you to someone else that might really help you.
So I know you mentioned the Aggie Network. Obviously, that's a huge thing that Aggies are always talking about. What would you recommend for students going into looking for internships? How do they tie in their Aggie experience and connects back to the Aggie Network?
There's a lot of different ways to do that. I think obviously our core values are really tied to who we are as Aggies. And a lot of companies are tied to their core values. So whenever you can tie A&M core values and to the company's core values when you're interviewing is a good way. But a lot of times also doing that networking, asking your peers what internships they've done, if they did they have a good experience? That's valuable too, right? The people who are in your classes with you, ask them what they did. One tool, so I know some students come in and they are not their first generation Aggie, and they may have never they don't know anyone else who's an Aggie in their family, and they're like, what do I do? Well, Find an Aggie is a really excellent tool. Have you heard of Find an Aggie before?
Yes.
Okay, good. So Find an Aggie through the Association of Former Students is just a really fantastic tool where you can look up company, you can look up job titles, you can look up all kinds of stuff, majors. You can just go through your major and see what kinds of roles people are in. I always use LinkedIn and Find an Aggie kind of together because LinkedIn sometimes is a little bit more updated than Find an Aggie. And so you use the alumni tab on the A&M page with Find an Aggie, and then you can contact people through Find an Aggie because it comes across as a branded thing and it's an instant connection, right? And it's also free because LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn, but you have to pay to use it a lot of times in some aspects. And so Find an Aggie is free.
So can students update their Find an Aggie profile with information to make themselves more marketable and accessible?
Yeah, absolutely. So Find an Aggie is a great place to do that. I would say LinkedIn is also really a great place to make sure you're on LinkedIn. And then, of course, we couldn't talk about internships without talking about Hire Aggies. And so Hire Aggies is our career portal. It's like I like to say, some people say it's just a job board. Well, it's so much more than just a job board. There, of course, you can find internships and things like that. But what's really valuable in Hire Aggies is there are some companies who use Hire Aggies to source A&M talent specifically because they're such a big company that sometimes if you just apply on their website, you may not make it past. But if you apply in Hire Aggies, you kind of get into that Aggie pool that they're looking at specifically. And so I always recommend students apply in Hire Aggies because a lot of companies will have you do their HR, Workday, whatever process on their website, but then also submit your resume in Hire Aggies. And then they're looking at that pool first because a lot of our employers know they can get really good talent from A&M. They like our students. They know our students work hard. And so take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many wonderful resources already on campus, obviously like the Career Center and like these networks to make finding internships and jobs so easy for Aggies. So circling back to the anxiety and stress surrounding finding summer internships, what can students do to make achieving this goal a little bit easier?
I think it's never too early to start thinking about that kind of thing. I think one piece that a lot of students don't understand is the timeline for internships and like when you should start looking for those internships.
Yeah.
And those are typically in the fall semester before the summer that you want to intern. So if I was a sophomore or junior this year and I wanted to intern in summer 2026, I should have been looking in the fall of 2025 to give me the most amount of options for internships. Now, if I didn't know and I'm like now looking for an internship, could I find one? Probably. I could find something. It may not be the most ideal thing, but if you really want that biggest pool of options, you want to start in the fall, especially and there are some use cases where that's even a little bit sooner. So for example, I work with May students, and if you are interested in investment banking, students are already applying and some already have summer 27 internships.
Wow.
Right now. Yeah, which is
That's
wild,
crazy.
right? And so I think that's where some of that anxiety comes from too, because it's like, well, I didn't know I was supposed to be looking so far.
Yeah.
And so I know that's one of the things at the Career Center that we're working really hard is to try to get to students earlier for them to understand these are those things. And even if you don't know what you want to do, try something, right? And so starting earlier is the best scenario, and going to career fairs and taking advantage of all of those things that happen in the fall, because we have a lot of heavy recruitment events that happen in the fall, not only career fairs, but info sessions that employers are doing. And so take advantage of those. And then at the Career Center, we also do a summer program called the Career Readiness Bootcamp Badge. And it's a virtual program, and it was designed out of COVID, actually. But we have revamped it every year and kind of made it better. But essentially what it was designed to do is help students prepare for the fall recruitment season. So you work on your resume, you work on interview skills, you work on LinkedIn, basically everything that you need to do. And we do it virtual, so you don't have to be here in College Station. You can be wherever you are at over the summer. And that typically happens in July.
Wow. There's so many, going back to it, there's so many incredible resources available. Two things really stuck out to me. I know you mentioned that students really have to start looking early for these internships. What's kind of the sweet spot as far as your classification of when's the right time to start having a summer internship? Or is there an answer to that?
It kind of depends sometimes, but I think if you start in your sophomore year, like the fall of your sophomore year, and try to get an internship after your sophomore year, that's great. It's worst case scenario, you don't get one, and then you work part-time or something over that summer. Really, that junior year is that sweet spot of the summer between your junior or your sophomore and junior year, right? No, junior and senior year. That's the sweet spot of getting that internship. And the reason that is because employers use internships to source full-time hires. And so they're using internships to evaluate, are you a good fit for our company? And so at the end of your summer internship, after your junior year, you might have a full-time offer, but walking into your senior year, and then you're not having a job search. So that's kind of that ideal time.
So I know you also had touched on the different readiness resources that are available, like the boot camp you guys have in the summer. How do students find out about this, or what's the best way to stay in touch?
Yeah, I think making sure you're logging into Hire Aggies on a regular basis. I think a lot of students don't realize that information is being added constantly to that system, and announcements and different things. Info sessions for employers. Like I literally added an info session last week for an employer. So like, if you're not looking at it on a regular basis, how do you know? And then every college has different ways to communicate different things. Like I know the College of Engineering has like their newsletter that they will submit things to the weekly student newsletter. I send out a newsletter in the College of in Mays Business School. So everyone has kind of different ways. So paying attention to your email is probably one place to start. But then also our website. We post all of our events and all of our programs on our website as well, on our Live Whale calendar. So you can see all of that information there. And actually, what's really interesting is a lot of students have said, oh yeah, we find information on your website. Like that's how we found out about this workshop or this thing. And I'm like, okay, interesting.
So going back to finding the actual internships, what kind of experiences do you recommend students look for?
Oh, that's a good question. I think some of it depends on your major, but there are so many different companies that are just looking for interns. And so don't be afraid to try something that even if you're like, I'm not quite sure if I like this, it'll help give you a data point to understand, do I like this? Is this something I could do full time? And I have had students who I had a business student who was working at an engineering firm in their IT department. And he was like, I don't want to work for an engineering firm. Like, I don't like this because it's all the focus is on the engineers. I don't feel like as an MIS, Management Information Systems student, I'm being poured into for what I need in my career. So he's like, I don't want to do that. So he was offered a full-time role with the company, but he decided to turn it down because after the internship, he realized that wasn't quite the fit for him. And that's okay. Students can do that all the time. So did that answer your question? I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I
Okay.
think it really touched back on the whole, just because you do the internship, it's not just about practicing for the real world or adding to your resume. It's a great experience in learning. Is this truly what you want to do for the rest of your life? Which I think is an important lesson for students that we don't always hear, because a lot of times this is just the first step in your job, but really it's just a great learning opportunity to see if this is what you really want to do or not.
Yeah, and I think getting a degree is the first step, right? And you're going to build upon that in your career. You don't get your career, your first job out of graduation, right? A career is built over job after job after job, right? And so I think that's what students forget, is that they think, oh, I have to have the perfect job right after graduation. you're not like the reality is you may, yes, great if you do, but you may not. I did not enjoy my first job after graduation, but I've ended up in the best job that I love now. And so finding that magical mixture of what am I good at? What do I enjoy doing every day? And what are the other values that are important to me? Like being close to work is important to me, and like living like the area that I live in is important. So like those kind of things matter. And sometimes you don't know what that is at 18 or 22, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay. You have your whole life to kind of figure out what that looks like, and it may change too over the years as well.
So obviously, based on what you said, this is kind of a whole year process. What's the best proactive step students can take throughout the year, just prepping for their summer internships?
So prepping for your summer internships is making sure that you're engaging with the employers. Like I think I think students forget that the employers are also trying to convince you to come work for them. They think, oh, I have to impress the employer. Yes, you do. Absolutely. But they're trying to say, we have a really great company, come work for us, and trying to convince you. And they'll do events and do things, and they're on campus doing different recruiting events. So stay in contact with them because they're people too. And so talk to them, go to their events that they're doing. Even if you don't think that you need something, sometimes going to the event is an opportunity to talk to someone. Like, for example, we do resume review events. And I tell students all the time, you may not feel like you need your resume reviewed, but there's a recruiter sitting at a table. Like that's an opportunity for you to have a one-on-one conversation with them. That's in a relaxed environment. That's not at a career fair. Because sometimes the career fairs feel intimidating because they're giant and there's lots of people and it's overwhelming, especially if you're an introvert like me. But the like smaller info sessions or resume review events allow that kind of more personal connection.
Absolutely. One point I would love to touch on is interviews. So what would you recommend students do to prep for interviews going into this process?
I think practicing is really important. And we have a mock interview tool within Hire Aggies where you can go in and you can build your own mock interview and select questions that you want to practice. There's some preset ones that you can go in and just practice and record yourself. And it's a great tool. Now, let me tell you, it's really awful watching yourself recorded and having to go back and watch yourself do that. But it's a great tool because then you're going to see what filler words are you using? Are you switching in your chair? Like, what are you doing? And those types of things. So it's a really great tool. And you can send that link. So after you record it and watch it, you can also send that link to a friend, to a professor, a mentor, your family, and have them watch it and tell you what you need to do. And more often than not, students, when I watch the video with them, they know they can pick up on what they've done wrong usually. Like every once in a while, I'll pick up on something that they didn't realize. But for the most part, when you watch back, you realize kind of the things that you're not exactly doing well. And so I think that's a great place to start. And just practicing the typical questions. And so some of the questions, a lot of them are behavioral based. They're asking, not just saying, oh, I can deal with conflict. I'm great at conflict. They're asking, give me an example. Show me how you've dealt with that conflict and how you've done that. And it doesn't always have to be successful either. Like you can talk about, this one time I was in this conflict with this group project and it ended horribly, but here's what I did differently, or here's what I did and learned from that, and here's what I would do in the future and how I would kind of get ahead of that in the future. Because they're evaluating, the employers aren't evaluating, are you the best at dealing with conflict?
Yeah.
They're asking, when you're in the workplace, how are you going to deal with conflict and can you handle it?
Yeah, giving real life tangible examples and helping you practice that. Clearly, the Career Center has so many resources to help students be successful in their professional careers. What ones do you recommend, obviously, besides the resumes and the interview prep?
There is a ton of things. I think if you are unsure of what you want to do, we also help you kind of navigate, what can I do with my major? What can I do with I know I want to do this job. What major do I need? Like kind of navigating that, like what should I study? We can help you with those pieces. So that career exploration. But I also think just meeting with us and taking advantage of the things that we're doing, because we are doing a whole lot to serve our students. And so taking advantage of those things as often as much as you can. It's not like some resources on campus where you have limited spots or limited visits, right? Like you could go to every single event that we do. You could come to drop-ins on a regular basis. And our drop-ins are a really great tool. We do those Monday through Friday. 1:30 to 4:30 is like our 1:30 to 4 is our most consistent time, because our morning drop-ins, we tend to taper off midway through the semester. But drop-ins are a great place to just come say, I have a question. I don't know where to start. come to our drop-ins and we can kind of get you connected to the right resources. Or if you have a resume review, a cover letter question, salary negotiation, an offer negotiation, any of those types of things, we can help you navigate. Yeah.
And there's multiple locations across campus as well, too. So students don't just have to come to the main career center.
Exactly. And every location kind of does things a little bit differently. Some of them have in-person drop-ins that you can drop by. I know our AGLS location out in the AGLS building, they even have a pop-up career closet. So if you need professional clothes, you can get those if you're an ag student. So there's just some really great resources across campus.
Absolutely. Do you have any success stories from students that you could share with any of our viewers that might really be going through the thick of it with applying for internships right now?
Yeah. I actually last spring, I met with a student who was like, I really want to go intern in New York. And this was in the spring semester. And so she was a little bit late, but I was like, okay, we're going to get you something. And so we reviewed her resume, we met, and I said, the piece of advice that I give to students very often is make people tell you no. If you don't put your name in the hat, you're automatically getting a no. But if you put your name there, you never know where that's going to lead. And so even if you're like, I'm not quite sure if I qualify, put your name in the hat. Make them decide if you are qualified for the role or the internship. And so she did that. She put in 75 applications to different internships, and she got one. She got an internship at, I think it was Goldman Sachs. In New York. And so she just needed the one yes. That's all she needed. And so she got that. She did her internship and she had a really good time. She learned from that internship. I actually met with her in the fall semester to kind of touch base. And she was like, yeah, I don't know that I want to be in that specific area, but I did learn a lot. And I'm really grateful for the connections that I made. I got to live in New York for the summer. But now I kind of know what I need to do moving forward. And she's even, I've connected her with a couple of students because they want to do a similar pathway. And so she's been able to help some other students too.
Wow. So what's the best piece of professional advice you would give to students ahead of this process?
Don't overthink it and just put yourself out there. That is the biggest thing that you could do. And I think that comes with applications. It comes with the interviews. Be authentic. And then when you're at your internship, put yourself out there. Ask people for advice. Ask for coffee chats. Ask for meetings with them. Take advantage and say yes to things when they're offered to you, because that's an opportunity for you to learn. And a lot of internships, I think some students forget or think internships are, I get coffee and I make copies. That's not what internships are. And for the most part, you're actually working on real life projects, and they sometimes want you to do some pretty big things for their company. And so it's an opportunity for learning.
So if I'm a student right now in the mid-spring that still hasn't applied and just started my search, what can I do as far as being proactive with the internship search?
I think making sure that if there are any engagements on campus that are happening, because we do have info sessions that are happening, go to those. Reach out to people on LinkedIn that are working at the company. And then also remember, if you don't get an internship, that's okay. You can go work part-time, even at Starbucks or Dutch Bros or whatever, or retail. All of that is really valuable. Employers love seeing those because it's not always an easy job. So it's not fun to go work at those places, right? But it's still really valuable because you're building skills, those customer service, the how to deal with difficult people, leadership, those types of things. Employers still see value in. So even if you don't get a traditional internship over the summer, do something, figure out, okay, what skills do I need for the career that I want to do? And how can I build those with a part-time job? Things like that. Like I've worked with students who are interested in like supply chain and logistics, and they've gone home and worked at an Amazon warehouse. Right? Like that's not a supply chain job or a supply chain internship, but they're getting experience in the supply chain process, right? And so part of that, understanding how logistics work and all of those things. So figuring out what can I do and how can I be creative? Or even if it's working at a summer camp over the summer, working with kids is not an easy thing, right? Wrangling them. So just figuring out how can I build those skills in different ways, or maybe it's working on projects or doing some research. That's the one piece that I feel like students forget about A&M. We are a Research One institution. So there's a ton of research happening on this campus in a variety of departments. And some departments you may not realize they're doing research on this because it doesn't traditionally fit in there. And you don't always have to have a major for you to help with research projects. So take advantage of those faculty relationships and what they're doing, because a lot of times research is also funded by industry because industry needs to learn all of these trends and things like that. So taking advantage of that can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, so really using your time wisely to still hone your skills, even if it's right here on campus during the summer.
Yeah.
I know you talked a little bit about reaching out on LinkedIn. How would a student go about that?
So if you search for the Texas A&M University page, on that page, there is an alumni tab. And in the alumni tab is the best place to start, right? Because of the Aggie Network. Go to the alumni tab, and then you can search by job title. You can search by company. If you're looking at DFW, those are great places to start. Or wherever, right? It doesn't have to be DFW. You can enter that in, and then you can kind of see profiles. But what's really cool on that alumni tab too, you can actually see where people work, where they live, what they do, what they studied, and then how you're connected, right? If you have first, second, or third connections. And so let's say you and I are connected, right? And then you have a friend that is in a job that I want to do. They would be my second connection because I'm not directly connected to them. I could reach out to you and say, hey, Elizabeth, will you connect me to your friend who's doing this? I'm very interested in that. And that kind of gives you that soft introduction where it really can be really helpful. So that's the way to do it on Aggie Network or kind of taking advantage of the Aggie Network, right? But there's also the way to do it with a company. Let's say you have a company that you're like, I really want to work at this company. Go to the company page, make sure you're following them, one, and then two, go look and see what people work there and see if you have any connections or if you have someone indirectly connected that you can reach out to kind of make that connection.
So really building off that network that you already have.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you share a little bit about how student experiences on Texas A&M's campus prepare students going into internships and the workforce?
Yeah. Actually, in a lot of our presentations that we do, we talk about building skills and gaining experience. And there's several bullet points under that. And on-campus involvement is an absolute one that we talk about all the time because in these student orgs, you're doing things like being a VP of the committees or marketing or finance or whatever it is. And so you're overseeing a budget or you're developing marketing tools. Those are valuable, real skills that you can put in a bullet point on your resume that employers are going to say, oh, you've actually had some direct experience. And when employers on a job description, whether it be for a full-time role or a internship, and they're saying we need 1 to 2 years of experience, I think a lot of students see that and be like, oh, well, I don't have full-time experience. Part-time experience, student involvement usually counts for those early career type of opportunities. And so getting involved, whether that be, you don't even have to have a title in an org, even if you're on the committee for marketing or you're on the committee for outreach or service or whatever it is, put that on there. It's super valuable.
Absolutely. And this is maybe something too, if students aren't sure how to put that on the resume, then they can come to you guys at the Career Center.
Exactly. Yeah, we can help kind of navigate how do I talk about that in the career in that way. And also, I feel like AI is such a huge topic, and we haven't really talked about artificial intelligence and how that helps with career development. And I think it is a really great tool to use, but not just use it blankly, right? And so there are some really good ways to use it. You can use it to help coach you. You can use it to help write your bullet points. You should not use it just to write your resume completely, but if you do parts of it to help you ideate, that's where I have really loved Gen AI, like Copilot and ChatGPT and things like that to really help you brainstorm and figure out how do I really word this in my own way, but give me some ideas.
So could you tell us a little bit about any experiences that might be maybe outside of the U.S. for students?
Yeah. So going abroad through Education Abroad is a really great way to do that. So like the traditional study abroad. And students sometimes laugh at me. They're like, but that's just like a fun experience. And I'm like, it is, yes, and it's a great way to open your mind to new things, but you have to develop critical thinking skills a lot of times when you're on a study abroad experience. And so take advantage of that. That's something that's really great to do between your freshman and sophomore year or your sophomore and junior year when you're not getting that as internships because again, you're getting to learn a new culture, a new language, and some of those experiences involve going to visit companies abroad. And so take advantage of that while you can, whether it be like a 2-week experience, a month-long experience, a semester-long experience. Because I also tell students all the time, I'm like, yeah, once you get a real-time job, you have to take time off to go travel. As a student, you can just enjoy that experience while you're young, and you have that opportunity and time.
What's the best way for students to find out about these international opportunities?
So departments is a good place to start. And then Global Education is another place. They have all kinds of resources. You have to go through them on anything anyways. And then I know some colleges also have specific offices that can help you navigate those experiences too. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing so much information and advice with us today about the search for internships and even after that, finding a job. We really appreciate all you guys do at the Career Center for students on campus. Thanks and gig 'em.